Time is running out. Nyquist is 100 yards from home. Exaggerator with one final try in the Derby. Nyquist holds on. He's undefeated, and he's won the 142nd Kentucky Derby.
Bobby Shoemaker, Andrew Calvano. It's Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge for Friday, May the 13th. 4 races as always. We've got 2 at beautiful Belmont Park this week, 1 more at Churchill Downs, and Andrew will end things in Santa Anita, the great race place in Arcadia, California. But before we go into our selections for this week, Andrew and I thought we would talk about the 4 races in which we covered last week on the show, culminating with the Kentucky Derby. So Andrew, last week we started things off with the Grade 2 American Turf. It was 2 turns on the turf. Both of us loved Beach Patrol. In fact, both of us were singled to Beach Patrol in our pick 4 and came up just a bit short by a nose. I'll start things off first with this horse. I thought it was everything we wanted from a ride perspective. The horse laid off the early speed, saved all the ground at the hedge. Turning for home, I thought the race was ours to lose. And then, lo and behold, Chad Brown, Irad Ortiz, and I told you last week, no matter what type of horse they look like on paper at that point, when those 2 guys get together, they do a lot of damage. And unfortunately, 18, 19 to 1 horse comes up and gets us late. Your thoughts on the race, your thoughts on Beach Patrol's effort after he shipped to Churchill Downs?
Yeah, without a doubt. When we originally did the show last Thursday, we both broke down Beach Patrol in so many different angles. It sounded like we were talking about a horse that just couldn't lose the race whatsoever. Like you said, Bob, turning for home, I thought we were free with Beach Patrol, but Camelot Kitten with Irad Ortiz aboard just made a hell of a move coming up on the inside there to nip us late. And like we talked about, Irad Ortiz and Chad Brown at a hefty price, 18 to 1 like that. Something you don't see every day, and that's why you have to respect, what Chad Brown is doing, especially on the turf. And just because of the high odds, you can never doubt Chad Brown himself. But as far as the ride perspective, I wouldn't blame anybody, really. It wasn't the Flavion Pratt's fault, wasn't the horse's fault. He just got nipped by, a horse that just, had a little bit more than him. And it was a tough beat for both of us, Bob. But I thought Beach Patrol gave us all he could.
Yeah, I would, if I could have that race all over again and it run the same way, I'd still take Beach Patrol, turning for home, getting first run on the deep closers. And, it's just unfortunate that we won't see 5 to 1 on Beach Patrol anytime soon, because he's going to go back out to Santa Anita and run efforts like that from last Saturday and probably win every single time he goes out. So the next race we talked about was the Grade 3 Pat Day Mile. And Andrew, Nyquist was your most impressive winner on Saturday, considering how fast they went and the stage that it was on. But Sharp Azteca was nothing short of special. I said on the show last week that I thought this horse had the most talent. I was just wondering if the pace would compromise him. I ended up changing my mind late through the window, and instead of putting your horse in my try, I went with Sharp Azteca and Forever Mo. Thankfully, I did. Sharp Azteca goes 22 flat, basically 44 flat. Never saw a whip from Edgar Zayas, and one going away with Forever Mo closing late to get second. Your thoughts on the race and your thoughts on Sharp Azteca's brilliant effort on Saturday?
Yeah, and that's, Bob, that's really all we can say. Just a very impressive race. Edgar Zayas, it was a hand ride, didn't really ask much of this horse at all. And when we spoke about, when we broke this horse down on Thursday, I think we were a little afraid that this horse would get somewhat in a pace duel, but you can see that horse was much the best. My selection, Cocked and Loaded, didn't really run at all, and Bob, we actually spoke before the race, and we were liking Sharp Azteca a little bit more. And I took Sharp Azteca in my big Survivor game, the $1,500 Survivor, and after that, that knocked us down to me and just one other guy. So, I benefited from Sharp Azteca huge there, and just overall a very sharp race, and delighted to see what comes in the near future for this horse. Bob, I know you were hoping Preakness, or you were hoping something around there. I know they're pointing the horse to prepping for the Haskell at Monmouth. So, we'll see, but definitely a horse to look forward to this summer.
Jorge Navarro's got what I think could be very special, and I'll say the least, because this horse broke his maiden in fine style, faced allowance horses, first off the maiden score, blew those horses away. And again, that field in the Pat Day Mile is certainly not going to go to the Hall of Fame. But there were a lot of horses in there that were closers that should have benefited from 44 flat. Yeah. And they had no answer for this horse, who I bet in banking on maybe Zayas will let the 5 go out and run himself in the ground. That was not the case. They went to the front, and Azteca went as fast as he could, as far as he could. And last time I checked, he went through the wire, and nobody else was passing him. So a brilliant performance from Sharp Azteca. We'll move on to the Grade 1 Woodford Reserve Turf Classic. Out of the 4 winners we had, this is the one I couldn't see. I can't wrap my mind around this one, Andrew. The race run completely opposite the way I thought it was going to run. Diversito gets the win and another upset. Your thoughts on his performance, and do you want him going forward?
Not necessarily. I think he definitely ran a big race. It depends where he's going to wind up, next time out. I would be afraid if that horse just winds up in a spot where the connections may seem a little bit over their head, and try to run him in a race where who knows if the horse could really, bounce. If that was just a fluke race, who knows if this horse can really come back. Bobby, I was on World Approval in that race, and, similar to Beach Patrol, couldn't really ask for much more. I rated perfectly just the way I wanted to. At the top of the stretch, I thought, this horse was going to win by a couple lengths, but it seemed like he just couldn't dig in. That last half furlong, Diversito gave him a really hard battle there, and I'd preferably want World Approval out of that race, because I think this horse just had a huge race, shine in this one moment, and World Approval will be a better horse going forward for the summer.
A Big Blue Kitten, I thought, did exactly what we thought he was going to do. I mean, coming off the long layoff, way up against it from a pace perspective. Yeah. I mean, that's the best horse to me in the whole race. I mean, second off the layoff next time, he's probably going to be a handful. He just was up against it from this, but he was coming, as we knew he would. I just thought he would run out of ground. I just got the horse that won the race wrong. So certainly last but not least, when it comes to our recap of last Saturday, it is the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby. I told you on this show that I thought Nyquist was the most likely winner just because of his consistency, his versatility. Doug O'Neill's track record with shipping horses all over the country. And I thought he would win. I didn't think his odds warranted selection, Andrew, in tournament play. Certainly not a win bet through the window. But I never thought in a million years he would win the way he did. When I looked up at the clock and I saw 45 and change and he's third, basically right on that speed, I said, this is going to set up for a closer that Andrew and I were very critical of. I was looking for more spirit. That didn't happen. And sure enough, Exaggerator came running late. But for this horse to chase that type of speed early and win this race, now I understand he was tired inside the 8th pole, and understandably so. It exemplifies how good this horse is. I'll admit it right here. I was wrong. He is much better than I thought he was. He is much faster than I thought he was. And Andrew, it's easier to go back and look at this horse's body of work. He's won at 4 or 5 different racetracks. He's won at a plethora of different posts. He's won from on the lead, right off the lead, closing, wide. He has absolutely done it all. Somebody made a statement on Monday, and I'm sure you'll agree with this at this point. He is more successful at this juncture of his career than American Pharoah was at this juncture of his career. And anytime you're beating American Pharoah in anything, you're winning. Your thoughts on Nyquist's performance in the Kentucky Derby?
I thought it was just lights out, and for the people who follow me on Twitter, I think I just tweeted "wow," and he said #Nyquist. That's really all you could say after that. Bobby, like you said, just some ridiculous fractions. And when Nyquist was sitting in that path, I said, this horse would have a lot. And my horse, Outwork, was sitting a length or two behind Nyquist, and I thought, going into the far turn, if Outwork, picked his feet up a little bit, he would be, much more closer. Obviously, when the dirt was kicked in his face, Outwork just did not get a good ride, whatever. But the way Nyquist won was so remarkable, especially, like you said, at this juncture where, the Kentucky Derby, the big grand stage it is, you just don't see that too often. And, going forward, not to jinx anything, I think he goes to the Preakness very easily. I don't think the Preakness would be a big deal. And he'll get tested at Belmont and whatever. The remark where, can we compare him to American Pharoah? After just the Kentucky Derby, who knows? Nyquist, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, sure, whatever, but, you're talking about the horse that just won the first leg. So I think the comparison would have to come a little later down the road, but, at this point, there's no doubt who the best 3-year-old in the country is.
I ended up going with Outwork as well in my tournaments. I never thought in a million years the horse would go off at 27-1. Unfortunately, he ran like a 27-1 shot. Yeah. However, I'm not throwing in the towel on him. He did chase 45 and change, and he's not in Nyquist's realm. He may never be, but that doesn't mean he can't go to Belmont and face softer or slower fractions and win races. The book is not nearly closed on Outwork. He's got Todd Pletcher on his side. He's got Belmont Park in Saratoga this summer. I'm not worried about Outwork at all. I guess the horse that I'm most disappointed in, we didn't talk about him much, and I didn't necessarily pick him and give him a shot, but I was high on Shaggoff all winter and thought he had a very good future. And Chad Brown clearly did as well, as he was shipping Irad all over the country to ride him. He ran last. Your thoughts on Shaggoff moving forward? Do you think he's got any type of future in a Grade 1 level?
Yeah, and Bob, a couple weeks ago, on the show, it's actually the first time we actually kind of bumped heads and we were talking about Shaggoff. I really wasn't sold on him from the beginning. I thought the one win in the Gotham was just, a fluke win. Not saying the horse isn't a good horse. The horse has reasons to improve, but I need to give this horse some time before I come back and bet him. Maybe this horse needs a Grade 3 race, or maybe just an overnight stakes. Nothing too crazy to kind of, get back into the swing of things. But as of right now, his last couple races have been very poor, to say the least.
Lastly, before we move on, I want to talk about the horses that you want out of this race. I'll go first. Obviously, both of us want Nyquist out of here long term. I still want Outwork. And also, listen, I'm not done with Danza Candy. And I'm not one to make excuse after excuse for horses. But the fact of the matter is, I still don't believe the Santa Anita Derby was a reflection of the talent of this horse. We both agreed a week ago today that the 20 post was going to do this horse in, that he was going to have to use too much horse too early in the race. Did he need to go 45? No. I don't understand what Mike's doing there, but nevertheless, even if they went 46, this horse is not winning. I think he would have ran better. But I think this horse can win races. You get him in an 8, 10, 12 horse field. He gets the inside draw or closer to the rail post, and he's a player. He's too fast and has shown too much speed to be thrown out. So there's the horses that I want out of here. Who are the horses that you want out of the Derby?
Obviously, big fan of Outwork. Been on since the maiden win. I'm going to want that horse out of there for the reasons you listed as well. I want to give Gunrunner a big shot. I thought Gunrunner ran a very remarkable Kentucky Derby race. I did not see the horse winning the race at all. He did what I thought he did, and a little bit more. I didn't think he would get into the trifecta, but he fought very gamely. He stayed up for the photo. The horse knew how to put his head down. I think that shows a lot of maturity at the 3-year-old level. So Gunrunner going forward, maybe if he's back in a Churchill Downs race, not really, questioning Saratoga rivals, depending on where he goes. But I think he can still get that horse at a decent price in the correct spot.
Fair enough. Well, there's the recap this week of last week's Kentucky Derby. And next week we'll be breaking down Nyquist and the Preakness, and what I agree with you, most likely we'll be moving on to Belmont Park with another chance at a Triple Crown winner. So let's move forward now to this week's selections, and we are going to start at one of my favorite places. It's beautiful Belmont Park, and quite frankly, probably the most talented race we're going to talk about tonight. It's race 10. It's the Grade 1 Man o' War Stakes. It's a 1 3/8 on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. A field of 9, Andrew, in the Chad Brown runner, Wake Forest, the 9 horse, is your 2-to-1 morning line favorite. To me, much deserved considering second off the layoff after that performance at Gulfstream Park. Your thoughts on Wake Forest initially? Is this the horse to beat?
Yeah, Wake Forest is definitely the horse to beat, and it's actually my top selection. I don't want to get too cute in this race. Like you said, Bob, this horse goes second off the layoff for Chad Brown. In my opinion, should have won that last race down at Gulfstream Park on April 2nd, the Pan American. Just kind of had a bad bob. Should have won that race. His Euro races are much better. I actually watched a couple on the replay site. His Euro races are much better than others. Second off the trainer change, second off the layoff, we listed that. Like I said, don't want to be too cute here. I think this horse is just a winner from the outside. It's Johnny Velasquez, it's Chad Brown. Will you see 2-to-1? No. You're going to see 7-to-5 on this horse. Not a single preferably in this race because you do have some decent other talent, but I think the horse off that last effort is just the horse to beat.
I had Wake Forest last effort. I thought he was going to win. I think he got a bad trip early and came up the rail late, looked like a winner, and got beat by Kygan, who doesn't really like to win that much. I think Kygan and Wake Forest are the two most physically gifted horses in this race. But here's what I do know. They're going to be in the back early. They're going to be in the back, the middle part of the race. And when they turn for home, they're just going to start making their moves. And they're going to be both short prices, and I'm going to take a shot against them. And the horse I landed on is the 5-horse Go Around. 10-to-1 morning line for Bill Mott with Junior Alvarado aboard. I've made some money lately on Junior with horses exactly like this. This horse has run very well, back-to-back starts for Bill Mott. I couldn't get past, Andrew, that race at Gulfstream Park February 27th, which is why I bet this horse. That was a whale of an effort in an extremely fast pace that day at Gulfstream Park. And this horse did all the dirty work and then some and won this race. I've seen this story before when it comes with the Naira circuit this time of year going long on the turf. Jockeys either don't read the racing form or they just have too much confidence in their horses and they let these other horses that they may be better than go out and set dawdling fractions. You better not do that with the 5-horse. If you let him go out there and go 25 and 50, this race is over. And I'll take 10-to-1 all day on this horse. If I get anywhere near that, I'm going to bet this horse at the window. I love races like this and horses like this because I've got the tactical advantage. If you're better than me, then you're going to have to come get me down the lane, and I'm not too sure they can get this horse down the lane. I'll roll with the 5-horse Go Around 10-to-1.
Bob, and when I was handicapping this race, it's very funny. I just knew you would land on this horse. It's just your style. That's why he's my second selection. Now I'm going to try, get the 9-5 in the exact and then, hit the all button for third place. But, Bob, here are the notes I have on the horse. Like you said, if they let this horse, walk the dog on the front end, that's going to be a problem. But, on the turf, only out of the money one time. The only times missing the money are the first 2 starts. I'll give him credit. He's improved since then. Runs very sharply. 2016, he has both wins down at in Florida, Gulfstream Park and Tempe, respectively. We see that Bill Mott workout we've been talking about for weeks and weeks on the show. That's the May 9th bullet drill on the surface. This horse on the front end, he has so much back class. I mean, we're talking horses, Thatcher Street, World Approval, who we were just talking about on Kentucky Derby Day. Definitely to be respected. Junior Alvarado doesn't set crazy fractions, but gets him in a nice spot early. They're going to have to come running this horse down. And I thought that's why I landed on the 9, because I thought the 9 was the only horse capable of doing so. But it's 9-5 for me, and Bobby, I see exactly why you're taking the 5, and that's a good selection there.
5-9 for me, 9-5 for Andrew. We'll move on to Belmont Park Race 11. It's a $62,000 allowance race, 7 furlongs on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. It's a field of 11 And the 4-horse Ancient Secret is your 2-to-1 morning line favorite. This is another one of these horses, Andrew, that won its last race or won its first start late in the fall. Chad Brown then puts him on the shelf, and he's back off of a long layoff, and he puts his #1 rider on him, Irad Ortiz. To me, absolutely the deserved favorite, absolutely the horse to beat. Your thoughts on this horse, your thoughts on the race?
I agree, Bob, and, it's a shame that we gotta, have 2-to-1 favorites on a horse that hasn't raced in, 6 months, but deservingly so. Chad Brown, Irad Ortiz, $225,000 purchase. This horse is going to have some. Won his first race very, very impressively. A winner by 3 lengths in a 12-horse field. That's always something to point out there. My concern is I'm not going to play this horse in tournaments. Probably not to win, just because I don't think the price is going to be anything near 2-to-1, like we talked about the other horse last race. This is a horse that's going to go off 8-to-5, something like that. So I'll try to beat. Unfortunately, there's not too much in this field, at least that I found. So I'm just going to go 3 deep to close out. And here's who I like that I'll use on top for tournaments talking. That's number 7, Bub Zena. His 2 turf races are not that bad. Both fourths, beating 3 lengths at crazy high prices. The buyers aren't that bad, but last race on April 29th, the race I'm focusing on. Traffic issues last one out. Might have cost this horse a win, as well as being 4 wide. David Dunk is a very underrated turf trainer here in New York who has a very solid ROI when going long. The point of this race is to beat the favorite. I'm not sure if that's possible. I like the 7. I think Manny Franco is a very underrated turf jockey as well. He's going to have to run a hell of a race to catch this 4-horse, but, as far as the horse is 7-5, especially late in the game where I might have to be in a position where I have to bump up some dollars, I'm going to have to try to catch one. Another horse that caught my eye was the 5, Majestic Bloom for George Weaver, just because of the speed, but other than that, didn't see much else in this race, Bobby.
I know you said you didn't see much else. Your thoughts on Hillary in the House, the 8-horse, second off the layoff for Linda Rice and Jose Ortiz?
Yeah, definitely to be respected. Just wanted to beat this horse as well, because I thought this horse would go off second favorite and go off somewhere near 3-to-1. And, Linda Rice, not that crazy on the turf. I'd rather take a higher ROI guy like George Weaver or David Dunk, just from a tournament perspective. The horse has every reason to improve, and wouldn't be surprised if he won the race, but I think the 4 beats this horse, any day of the week, but I'm just going to try to get my price in with either the 5 or the 7.
Irad and Chad have been beating me since last Saturday, and they're not going to beat me in this race because this horse is so much the best. I watched the video of Ancient Secret's victory on October 24th at Belmont Park, and Irad did his patented wide move, not caring, and the horse didn't care either, and won by 3, and quite frankly could have won by half a dozen. The horse should be forwardly placed. Now with Irad, you don't really know, but he should be forwardly placed, and he should set off the 8-horse that I think will quit, because I think it'll be overbet, and like you said, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have 8-5 on the 4-horse than 3-1 on the 8-horse. I just think that there's more value there. I like your thought process when it comes to the 7. I think you can make an excuse for the last start off slow, but in the end, Andrew, because I know in a large tournament that I'm going to play in on Saturday that I'm going to have other price horses, including the horse we just talked about in race 10, and every dollar counts when you're talking about a $25,000 tournament. I'll just take the 4 at what I feel like is a free square and move on. I think this horse is much the best and will win by as much, if not more, than what it did in its $70,000 maiden special weight win.
Yeah, without a doubt, Bob. It's tough because there's just nobody else that can really compare to this horse.
No.
Layoff, whatever, but there's just not much in it. You have horses that can't even win at the $25,000 claiming level that are trying to beat this horse. I just don't think it's done. So Bob, I'm on the 4-horse on top. Gonna try the 5 and 7 underneath. If it comes down, I get a nice price on the 7. I'll try to use in tournaments, but the 4 is by far the horse to beat in this race.
Before we move on, if if this is any other trainer, even Todd, who's my favorite trainer of all time, and I think the numbers say he's the best of all time, 203 days off. If it's anybody else but Chad Brown, I'm not touching this horse.
Nope.
How does he get his horses ready to not only run well, but pop first off of a huge layoff like this?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think if I knew the answer to it, I'd be a richer man, Bobby. But just stats show it. Him and I couldn't ask for a better team. And like you said, Bob, anybody else, I would just cross this horse out, and try to get him back. If he was that good, I would wait for a second off the layoff. But in this situation, it's almost become a formality where you're just used to the situation and you just play it regardless because this horse is definitely the one to beat.
Is he the best turf trainer you've ever seen?
100%.
No question about it. Okay. Churchill Downs, race 10, a $52,000 allowance, 2 turns on the turf for 3-year-olds. Andrew, it's a field of 11. And Try Your Luck, the 8 horse, is your understandably and deservedly so favorite at 3-1, considering that last effort where he freaked out at Keeneland, wins by 9 1/4 lengths. You got Cassie, you got Stevens. Do you think this is the horse to beat?
I definitely think this horse is to be respected, and any horse coming in from Mike Maker, Gary Stevens, winning a $59,000 maiden special weight at Keeneland by 9 1/4 lengths is definitely going to be respected. But I think the horse is beatable, and along with that point, the point I'm making here is 6 of the 11 starters are facing winners for the first time today. So I'm thinking right off that notion right there, we can find a price in this race.
I agree.
With that being said, I landed on number 2, Lope, for Albert Stahl and Brian Hernandez. Albert Stahl's had a great Keeneland. He's transitioning into Churchill now. Brian Hernandez is bringing in a lot of long shots. He's been doing some solid turf riding. This horse, going back 6 starts, hasn't missed a trifecta. He's been racing in some decent races, some good class races at Keeneland Fairgrounds. Goes second off the layoff today. I think the horse is going to be cranked. I think the horse is going to sit right off of the 8 horse there. If there's any more speed, I can see this one definitely just raining, stalking, and jumping down late and closing in the stretch. So it's number 2, Lope, for me here.
I do understand, and I said I understand why the 8 is your favorite, but I think your 2 horse is the most likely winner for everything that you just mentioned. I went with a bomb here, Andrew, because of the fact of the maiden horses facing winners for the first time. And you know how I am about horses forwardly placed on the turf. And I think this is a very vulnerable group of $52,000 allowance horses. And I landed on the 6 horse, Talk Show, at 20-1 morning line. I understand this horse is going dirt to turf, but he's by Smart Strike out of a Lucky Struck Gold. I think you can get worse connections when it comes to getting on the turf for the first time. I like this horse's effort February 28th when it drew the 11 post, went 4 wide all the way around the racetrack, won by 2 lengths, last time out in a $79,000 allowance, which again is better than what most just faced last time out. Got caught up into a big-time speed duel going a mile and quit, and understandably so, and got beat by 2.5 lengths. Now he stretches out, gets on the turf for the first time, and faces what I feel like is a bunch of vulnerable horses that are going to be overbet. I think this horse is the speed of this race. I think this horse is going to be your leader turning for home. If the 8 can repeat his last effort, he's much the horse to beat. If the 8 and the 6 compromise each other, your 2 is going to win. But this 6 horse, considering the field he's in and what he's just faced and how he's done, he should not be 20-1. And I'll roll the dice with a horse, and this could be a horse that wins me a lot of money on Saturday.
Bob, I actually looked at the replay last night on the number 6 horse because I thought it was intriguing. When I first looked at this horse, I saw the debut, second by a neck. The way I kind of do handicapping sometimes, especially in fields like this, I just count that as a win. I see the horse wins next time out. Then he loses by only 2.5, finishing 6th. I want to see what's going on with this horse and why this horse could possibly be a huge overlay if he's still 20-1. I watched that race. With a furlong left to go in that race, it looks like that horse still has a chance. He's tired, but so is everybody else. He just kind of gets closed on late. But like I said, only 2.5 from the wire there. That 6th place effort is not as bad as it looks. Should the horse be 20-1, Bob? I don't know. When I had my line's down. I have the horse at 10-1,
which is where he should be,
just because of the last effort. So, Bob, if you're getting 20-1, that might have to be my play from an ROI perspective. Just because I don't like any of these horses facing winners for the first time. If they beat me, they beat me. I'd rather take my chances with some prices from horses that had a lot of experience. And like you said, that $75,000 optional claimer is much tougher than any other horses I've really faced in this group. And I have here the turf pedigree is good enough for this group.
No
Are there any other horses that you see that could possibly be a factor to close out some exotics in this race?
No doubt. I think he's certainly my tournament play. And, I may throw a couple of dollars on him to win at the window and key him in some tries with the 8 in your 2 horse. And lastly, in reference to class, the Oaklawn Park meet is a very, very solid winter meet that gets better and better each year. And for him to compete, as you mentioned, that well in basically an $80,000 allowance, which is infinitely better than what most of these horses have faced, with a horse going to be on the front end, I can't believe he's 20-1.
Yeah. With that, is there anybody else you see possibly, causing a disturbance, for lack of a better term, to our horses?
I tried to like the 11 with Corey Lannery aboard. I think he's really good at coming off the pace and timing rides, but I think this horse is slow, and he's yet another horse that just beat winners and did it in a slower race than what the 8 did. So again, the 8 is your deserved favorite. The 2 is the most likely winner, and I think the 6 is the value play.
Without a doubt, and I think we land on some very prime horses here. Obviously, if we can catch 20-1 on the 6, that'd be great in your sense, Bobby. So you're on the 6 talk show. I'm on number 2 Lope. Let's wheel him around, see if we can catch him with some tries.
I agree. More ROI with Andrew and Bobby. So we'll move on to last but not least. It's Santa Anita Race 9. $60,000 allowance optional claimer. 6.5 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-olds and up, Andrew. A field of 12. In Desert Dynamo, the 9 horse is your 7-2 morning line favorite off that last effort off the layoff at Los Alamitos, where Kent DeSormo laid off the pace and closed late and looked like the winner all the way down the stretch. Won pretty impressively. May get a pace duel to set it up for him. Do you think this horse is the horse to beat?
No, not really. I think there's so much more in this race. Deserving favorite, sure, but I don't think this horse is going to win the race. I think he's just the favorite because of that effort, that Oklahoma Derby effort, grade 3, very, very good. The Cajon at Del Mar, also very good. The horse is going to be forwardly placed. It's Jerry Hollendorfer and Kent DeSormo, who has really been turning things up as of late. The horse to beat, I'm not sure, but you're deserving favorite nonetheless. I saw this race, Bob, with tons and tons of speed. I don't know if you saw it the same way, but I saw about 4 or 5 horses going out to the front end. And I think that's going to set up perfectly for my horse, and that's number 1, Rocco's Wheel. Set up with a perfect pace advantage here, a perfect distance. He's going to sit right there and make his move. The rail concerns me just a little bit. I got to see how the rail's playing if I really want to go ahead and play this horse at the windows rather than the tournaments. But if I got to trust in Joe Talamo, who's been starting a very hot Phil D'Amato, we all know the work Phil D'Amato does. I'm okay with that, but I got to see how the rail is playing. Last out off the layoff last race in September, a sloppy race course, obviously had no feel for it. Faced tougher state breds throughout his career. The horse runs, very, very gamely. Santa Anita, he has 2 wins. He loses to a next time out winner last out. He's faced Gimme the Loot 2 times. He's faced Grazing Sky 2 times. Richard Boyd. He's got a lot of good horses in his running lines. I feel if the pace perspective comes out the way I'm thinking it, this horse saves ground on the rail. If Joe Talamo can get him out, this is going to be your horse that's coming in late.
I like the selection. I like your creative thinking there, and this horse should not be 10-1. And it will be interesting to see if that is where the horse is going to go off at, because Phil had a whale of a winner and certainly is being recognized now as one of the better trainers in North America. And he certainly, on paper, is going to get a pace set up for him. However, if there's a racetrack in the country that favors speed more than any other racetrack in America, it's absolutely Santa Anita. And I didn't want to overthink this race, Andrew, and try to do something that I'm not accustomed to doing. You know, I like to be forwardly placed in most of my races, and I won't change that here. I'm going to go with Glacken 2, which I believe is the 10 horse at 9-2 morning line, who's also a Phil D'Amato runner, and Edward Maldonado is the jockey. Phil used to train this horse back last fall and thought enough of him to put him in a Grade 1 stakes race at Santa Anita in a sprint in which he faced Wild Dude and Kobe's Back. And oh, by the way, he ran behind Wild Dude and Kobe's Back in a very game third-place effort. For whatever reason, he's trained by someone else after that, claimed they'd taken out the Golden Gate. He didn't like the Tapeta near as much as the Dirt. Comes back March 5th, and this is what race I'm betting this horse off of. That race, March 5th, in my opinion, will win this race, despite the fact there's other speed and despite the fact he's drawing the 10 post. Though the last race out, Andrew, because it's on the slot, and you got a pretty nice form under Phil D'Amato. This horse will be on the lead. I think he's the best of the speed horses, and I'm banking and gambling on the fact that Santa Anita will continue to favor speed. If I have to go with a price in a tournament late, if I need one, it would certainly be your one horse. I think Desert Dynamo is an absolute play against. I don't even think he's the horse to beat. I think the horse that I'm selecting, Glacken 2, is your horse to beat, and I think your winner.
I thought Glacken 2 was actually going to be the favorite in this race. I had him at 3-1 on the morning line. Desert Dynamo had 9-2. Like you said, Bob, a lot of solid backclass. How could you knock the horse who finishes within 4.5 lengths of the likes of Wild Dude and Kobe's Back? You know, he ran some very game races in New York for Michelle Nevin, who was a little bit hotter than she is now at the time. Like you said, Phil D'Amato then goes to the Sherman barn, doesn't like the Golden Gate synth, whatever. Comes back, sloppy racetrack last time out, still runs pretty decently to a next out winner. I'm looking at the running lines here. Lost the whip in that race, you know. So I went back, I looked at the replay. That made a hell of a lot of a difference there. I think the horse, you know, although beating a couple lengths there, 2 1/4, horse could have been a little bit closer had he not lost the whip. Bobby, I respect your pick. I just thought there was just too much speed. Did you see the horse getting away from the rest of the speed company? How did you see the pace?
Yeah, I think he's faster. And if he can get a clean break and semi-clear early, and what I mean by that is not get hung in the forepath, which is a possibility. But if he can break cleanly like he did March 5th, he's going to set 2 or 3 path. And I just saw it time and time again today where you look at the times and you go, there's no way that these cheaper $33,000 claimers are going to be able to maintain 22 and change, 44 and change at 6 furlongs, and lo and behold, they do it anyway. And this horse is a hell of a lot better than $33,000 claimers. So I just see 2 or 3 path, best horse, and force a lot of horses. Now, I know it's not your horse, but a lot of horses are coming off of a layoff, and they've been running in longer most of their career. What does that tell me? That tells me they're using this race as a prep race for something longer and bigger down the road. That's not the case with the 10. This is his best distance. He's third off the claim. He's third off the layoff. $11 is ridiculously good on this horse. And I just think he's your most likely winner who's going to be in the lead turning for home.
Yeah, well, without a doubt, Bob, like I said, I paid a lot of attention to the horse. You know, I had him down as the favorite. It was just the way I saw the pace. Obviously, we're seeing things a little bit differently, but a horse to respect nonetheless, Bobby. You know, Glacken 2 actually comes out of the same race as my top selection, and that horse kind of got a good turn of foot there on my horse, beating by a couple lengths there. But
no doubt.
Nonetheless, I think we're on 2 very strong horses for tournament play. And Bob, if you get 9-2 on that horse, hope you have him at the windows, because this is the horse to beat.
No question. And your horse, he benefits the best from the pace advantage. And like I said, and the last race was very impressive. Now, can he duplicate that effort on a fast racetrack? I know August 2nd at Del Mar, he ran well, but not as good as he did last time out. So certainly from a pace perspective, the one horse could benefit. I'm just banking on the best horse with the most speed getting the job done. So that'll do it for this week's edition of Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge. We hope we found you a plethora of winners. For Bobby Shoemaker, for Andrew Calvano, I'm Bobby Shoemaker. Until next week, and as always, Good luck.
Good luck, guys.